Hello and welcome to the Call to Courage podcast. I'm Gareth Pickering and I'm joined today by Dane Tomas. Hello, Dane.
Hello.
Good to see you. This is the second take of this recording. I'm not sure what happened last time. Are you plugged in?
I'm so plugged in.
How are things going, brother? What's news from down under?
Things are going pretty good. I launched a new thing earlier this year called the Esoteric Entrepreneur Academy. We kicked that off pretty much on January 1st, thereabouts, and it's rocking and rolling. It's basically somewhere between a mystery school and a business mastermind. So people have been joining that, and we've been delivering our first few teachings and rituals and so on, and it's going real good. It's taking a little bit of bandwidth to set up, so that's my main gig at the moment. I'm shopping to buy a house. I might be buying a house very soon, and
How's that going? Have you found something?
I've found something pretty nice that I will be looking at tonight. So I've looked at a lot of houses, but the best prospect so far is I'll be visiting it this evening and checking it out. So sending good juju towards that. And beyond that, just been doing a fair bit of physical training, more focusing on strength training and that sort of stuff these last few weeks, and trying to eat lots and I don't know, have a good life. I'm really in a sort of foundations mode this year. I feel like I'm building stronger foundations in every area of life, and so far so good.
Share how your physical training practice is going. That's been a dance for you. You have times when you're super good at it and times when you feel like you're not with it, right? I think we've
Yeah,
spoken about that
it's like,
before.
I didn't grow up athletic. I grew up either a nerd or then later on a drug taking rebel. So my models of physical health were not. I just didn't think it was cool. I was either a
Hmm.
sci-fi fantasy nerd or later on musician and artist, and it was just more about drinking and taking drugs and staying up late for for the first 20 years. Um, so when I started, actually, it
Has
happened
that
for me.
changed?
It has somewhat changed. It has somewhat changed. It really started for me when I took myself through the spiral, the healing process that I created in 2012. After I went through it, it's like I had a different window of opportunity. I sort of was able to look at my life and some of the areas that I was already skilled really sort of just skyrocket overnight. But the other thing that happens when you clear up your baggage is areas that you kind of suck become a little more. You at least have the confidence to look at them. So it's like, oh, geez, I'm kind of a 2 out of 10 in this department. That's not very good.
Hmm.
So the journey since then has been gradual and has been kind of on and off. But if I look at it from my 30s, there's still been an upward trend line of my 44-year-old self could kick my 34-year-old self's ass. So that's probably a good measure. Um, yeah. So more like I've been training jiu-jitsu on and off for years, but this year I decided to sort of reset and just focus on strength and mobility and really, I think what I'm doing, I did a lot of magical work last year around and the end of 2021 around kind of connecting to who I want to be in the next 20 years. And I got a lot more clarity around that. And one aspect of that was just a higher level around strength, fitness, body. And so I feel what I'm doing it's a bit different in that there's more meticulousness to it. There's a lot more uh, micro structure around all my goals this year. Actually, like I just spent a lot of time over in December mapping out what had worked well in 2022, what had not. Sort of chose my top priorities and then really reverse engineered where I want to be by the end of the year. What does that look like quarter by quarter? What does that look like month by month? And then what does that look like week by week, and particularly for the areas where I'm not masterful. I feel like I've learned a bit about how this body responds to training. Like I've come a ways, but for the for some bits of it, I was just referencing with a couple of friends of mine who are strength trainers who have good results background in that area, not just for themselves but for others, and kind of got them to help me calibrate. Okay, could I? No, you could shoot for more here. Okay, we're shooting for more there. We're shooting for less here. Be realistic about this. You could up that. Just that kind of mentality. I think so. Yeah, I'm going to gym. To a normal person, it would not seem anything particularly crazy, but it's like gym 3 to 4 times a week, a little bit of body weight stuff at home, eating the first stage of my food. Food is one of my weakest areas, or has been, where I just fucking eat nothing or pig out on pizzas and kebabs and drink booze and whatever. So I'm doing that in baby steps, which is basically for the first couple of months, just trying to hit protein goals. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of junk in there. It doesn't matter if it's just like, I just need to eat enough to fuel what I'm trying to do. And then month by month, we can sort of clean up. Okay, let's not get it from that. Let's get it from this. But yeah, basically what it looks like and feels like to me is I took myself back to baby steps, and already it's February, right? I'm in month 2, and it's already like I can see the build starting to happen. So yeah, that's a little bit about how it looks.
How does the food part look? Are you cooking for yourself? Have you got someone cooking for you? Like, how do you make that work for yourself?
I don't cook for myself much. I basically, I was started when like, I'm going to do all these meal plans and all this stuff. And something in my brain was like, do not complicate
No,
this.
you're not.
We exactly. It's like, look, it's history. History has not been kind to these elaborate plans. So basically, the first thing I did was just hack breakfast. So I used to get a bunch of like bacon and eggs on toast or whatever. I found a place down the road that does good coffee, and they do like a nourish bowl, and I get a fucking chicken breast and a couple of eggs with it, and it's like it already stacks the day in the right direction. And then I noticed the next things I eat seem to follow that. And then I also found where I live, Byron Bay, is quite good for local produce, right? There's a lot of little farms and little whatever. This is hilarious that I'm sharing this. There's this one store, they sell these like pre-cooked wrapped chicken breasts. So every day I buy like 2 or 3 of those. And so lunch is like a fucking 300-gram Moroccan chicken breast by itself, and, a glass of water or whatever. And it's like, fuck, I've hit my macros already. I'm already there. And then dinner is a bit more, might have more carbs, might be fucking chicken and rice or whatever. But basically, my first hack was to find a few easy meals that are readily available that I can rinse and repeat. And actually, this is a hack that I've used in business as well a lot. I feel the empowerment in like taking the bar lower. It's like a reverse. It's like, so like I'm going to cook 5 meals for myself, but it's like, just assume you suck. Assume your level of capability here is the minimal. What is the quickest, most reliable way to get this outcome? And it's like, for the last month, I've watched, because I track my food in an app, which I like. I'm good at that part. I quite like shit like that, which I know some people hate.
What are you using? What app is it?
It's like MyFitnessPal.
Ah, cool. Yeah.
It's just that, type in your food, it's got everything listed. And it's like, yeah, I actually enjoy that part, because there's a little bit of a nerdy aspect for me of like, oh, fuck, look, I ate 200 grams of protein today. Like, I used to think it was not possible. I used to just not have the appetite. And then it's been interesting to watch it gradually shift into like, that feels like I ate a normal day of food, but compared to how I was eating across last year, it's like there's a lot more nutrient dense food getting eaten. And that's the main, stage 1 is just, I just want to hit certain lifts, certain body weight practices that are all pretty basic, and it's eating enough to fuel that pretty much. And I'm doing like body scan. I got a body scan at the beginning of the year, like the whole percentage thing. So I'll do that every month. Just got all my blood work and whatnot done. So I'm looking forward to going through that with my naturopath. So it's kind of I kind of brought science to the table this year. You know, I brought a bit more science into, and meticulousness into my approach, and I also made it. I track my goals like very committedly, and basically, I just decided to put body as number one this year, and business as number two, and everything else. Areas that I'm already really good, they can be like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 because they're probably going to happen anyway. But the new things, you know, I'm doing new stuff in business, so I'm keeping a real close eye on that. The body and the business are like that's the plans for the year. And everything. And I watch myself, but there's a lot of other stuff going on, and it's like, nah, I haven't got time for that. This is what we're doing this week, you know. So I do feel like that approach works for me in other areas. So yeah, watch the space. I'm gonna be jacked.
Cut. I love what you spoke about there, which is something that I've taught as well with regards to the process of manifesting as well as goal setting, which is set something that you can believe that you can actually reach, like set a goal that you can reach and actually attain to prove and develop the belief that you are the person that reaches these goals. And I think
one Hundred
a lot of
percent.
our audience is men, and they have this idea of like, okay, it's January the 1st, I'm going to go from nothing to a body weight bench press, and just, yeah, it's just too much, and burn out or feel like a failure when you don't reach it. So yeah, I love how you unpack that. Is that a similar approach to what you do for you said you use it in business as well?
Yeah, I coach basically spiritual people in business is my main niche. And look, one thing I see with people, this is true of anything, but I guess I have some experience with the business thing over other areas. I think that our ability to calibrate what we're capable of is one of the areas where we fall down in areas where we're not yet masterful. You know, it's like in something that I'm really good at, I can make a pretty educated guess of an area that I'm going to stretch myself. I can make a pretty solid estimate of what I'm capable of, and I can do it. You know, so I set the thing, I achieve the thing, and my brain goes, "Cool, we did that." And then the next one, I set a little bit further, do it again, and it gets done.
Yeah.
When people are new at something, they tend to. It's like, yeah, I think of it. I call it calibration, or is the language that I use, and I think of it like it's like our brains haven't yet been trained how to estimate realistically, and that can go both ways. You know, that can work in being really shy of committing. You know, of really like, oh, I'm going to try to make $50,000 this year. I'm like, at least shoot for like 120 or something. Like, if we're going to bother fucking getting out of bed, let's make it. Oh, I'm gonna do 7 figures this year. It's like, have you even made 200 grand? Why would you think? And you don't come from an entrepreneurial background or business. Okay, so
Yeah.
I don't want to discourage you, but it would be the equivalent of like, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to be hitting like, you know, I'm going to deadlift double my body weight. It's like, you're new at the gym, right? Like, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's
Find that
assess.
happy medium.
Yeah. 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 Let's assess what you're even capable of. Have you come from an athletic background? Are you fat as fuck? Have you been sitting on your ass for the last 10 years? Like, where are you? So,
Hmm.
one of the things I get people to do is just start to build maps of where they're heading, test things out, and start to regard it all as data as well. And I think, you know, we make a plan, we break it down to smaller pieces, we shoot for that first small piece, say the first month, and then we're going to get some data from the world of like, oh, that was nothing. I smashed that. Or, oh, that's not that easy. And it's like, okay. And rather than being like, oh no, I can't do it, it's wrong. It's like, cool, what we got was data. You know, you set your goals twice as high as they should have been. Let's bring that down and see if you can hit in February. You see if you can hit that reduced goal, and then build. You know, and I think this is also a thing with team building. You know, like building plans that we know we're gonna hit, because I want everyone on my team to work towards one thing, and I want us to get the feeling of we hit the fucking target. We hit the fucking target for quarter 1. That's so exciting. That means we're probably going to do it again. Not this thing that a
Hmm.
lot of people do where, oh, we nearly hit it, but it's okay, don't worry. And it just builds like a low level of trust in the group organism, because we're constantly fucking lying to ourselves, you know? So, but I think it's important to understand when you're new in an area, you won't be well calibrated. It's like a little kid trying to like run and jump and whatever. Like they fuck shit up all the time. They fall over, they hit their knees, they miscalculate how far they, you know, like, but after a while of having those bumps and scrapes, we embody a more realistic, like, I could jump across that ditch, or I could, you know, I could pull myself up there. I've done it before. So yeah, I think that's, and the discouraging thing, I think there's also this piece around like ego getting into our goals, you know, like, whether it's money goals or whether it's strength goals or whether it's whatever, like there's this idea of like, I've got to become, you know, I'm going to start up meditating. So I'm going to meditate for 1 hour a day. I was explaining
Right.
this to a friend. I'm like, okay, so you've never done that? That's the equivalent of like me wanting to become a champion CrossFit athlete this year. Like it's not impossible, but it's really at the fucking unlikely end of the scale. You're really setting your bar for like, you know, you don't know how hard that is yet, but that's to do that
Right.
every day for a year. I'm not saying you can't, but it's going to take a lot. And he's like, yeah, I tried it. It sucked. I'm like, cool. Let's get you doing 10 minutes meditation a day, and you just mark it on your calendar. And if you miss one, well, next week we set the goal to improve the average of how many meditations you did a day. And then it just starts to
Right.
be like a foundation of, wow, in January I had 22 10-minute meditations. It's like, great, what's your February goal? It just needs to be more than that. It just needs to be 28, 25, you know, and then in March we could start going, you know, I can do 20-minute meditation sits. And then before you know it, we start to be creeping towards, oh, you sit meditation properly each day for like half an hour every day. That's pretty cool. You built a real habit. And yeah, I kind of love the science of that shit, you know?
Yeah, for me, it has also to do with the fact that when you sit consistently to meditate, you become a meditator, you know, and you're
Yes,
starting to
yes,
be the person that meditates instead of the one
yes.
who's like, I'm going to be, you know, that ego driven goal. You are starting to be the person that hits their target, that is consistently checking in with the data points that you spoke about. So, yeah, it has to do with becoming the person
Yeah,
that you want to be, that leads towards the goal that you're going towards.
yeah. November for me, I was in Bali and I was like, I'm just going to become a guy who goes to the gym. I didn't even care what we were achieving in there. I didn't care if we're fucking around between sets and if we don't, you know, like I was just, and then I come back and eat a bunch of good food. I'm like, I am a guy who goes to the gym. That's proven, you know, that's a factual reality. Like, yeah.
You spoke about that future state of who Dane Tomas is going to be for the next 20 years. So
Mm.
who is that?
So
It's the same theme, right? You're future stating it is who it is that you want to become.
yeah, well, the way this came through, you know, quick story. During COVID 2021, I live in Australia in the state of New South Wales. My parents lived in the state of Queensland, where I grew up, and they closed the borders here, right? So we couldn't go visit people. And I remember I hadn't really cared about the whole COVID thing. I basically ignored it for the first year. I was like, I'll just work from home. I'll just make music. Who cares, you know? When they closed the border, I was just like, fuck, okay, I'm trying not to get involved in this, but that pissed me off, you know? And I could see myself in a process. I wrote this song about it, and then I was like, all right, it's still moving through my system. And I was like, yeah, you're just thinking too small. Like, if you're worried about that, like, I don't even really want to go see them this week or next week. So it's not even in real terms, it's not even an issue for me. It's the idea that I
Yes.
cannot do the thing is annoying, you know?
Right.
And I just sort of started to fuck with my frames and was like, look, that just showed me I'm not thinking in big enough terms right now, you know? Like, if, if I had clear 20-year vision, I wouldn't be worried about what's going on for this year. It's highly unlikely that border's staying closed for the rest of my life. It's probably a political thing. Politicians come and go. You know, like I want to be a being that operates on a much larger time scale than this mundane 1 year, two. Anyway, that led to me just going, cool, who am I going to be in 20 years? You know, it's not quite, I was 42, turning 43 around that time. And I just rounded it up to like, okay, 65-year-old self. And it was this vision of like being a 65-year-old dude just smashing out endless pull-ups, living on beautiful properties all over the world, having my community of wealthy, entrepreneurial, embodied, creative, spiritual folks that are all doing kick-ass cool shit, you know. And it was just this, it all kind of came together, you know. It was like, okay, so this guy looks like that, moves like that, is surrounded by people like that, loves like this, is, you know, a big corporate was like just standing so solid and feeling this core of like love. It wasn't about who am I loving, how, you know, what lover or partner. It was like, no, I am anchored in love and I have amazing people around me and I can travel the world and have multiple properties. That is my network, and my body is capable of these things, which for a 65-year-old is probably putting me in a pretty unique slice, you know, in a very high percentile of state of fitness. It's shit that I can't do now. So I'm wanting to be stronger now than I am at 20, you know, than
At
I am at
43.
45. Yeah. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right. This is a very specific thing you're asking. Definitely can happen. And I started to work with this not just as like goals on paper, but as like just a vision of this being, of just like, and it started to get to the point where, like, oh, he's talking to me. He's talking. He actually exists, and he's talking to me back down the timeline. Which is much
Yeah.
more than like, oh, I've got a goal. I put a picture on my vision board. You know, it was like, no, this is a version of me that exists, and I'm going to start talking, communing, closing my eyes, and have him step into me, feel what he feels like, listen to his internal self-talk, feel this energetic of this, like a good head. There's a heaviness there that is a good heaviness. It's like, oh, this guy is way more anchored than you. He's on fucking planet Earth. He's mystically connected, but he's right fucking here. And it was like, okay, I got this benchmark. I got this, and this energetic transmission where, so I did a course not long after that called Lightbringer, and I got all of us to call through our 20 years ahead of self into the first ritual and start working with that. And it was fucking amazing. People started having real, you know, like really visceral results. So whereas my sort of 3 years, 5 years, there's a lot more metrics. This is much more of an energetic. It's not like there's a list of shit that I need to tick off in the next 20 years as such. It's more like a visual and kinesthetic feeling. However, when I'm working with goals and planning, that feeling definitely influences, you know, like why is this year a year of foundations? Because it's like, well, there's certain shit that need to be sorted out that I wasn't on track for that to be that guy. You know, it's like, if you just rinse and repeat last year, that's not gonna move us towards that in any tangible way. But if we were to add in these priorities, i.e. strength and body, these priorities, getting the business in a certain level of order, this house buying, that would be definitely the moves that would align with him. I also took on a relationship coach this year who's awesome, you know, someone who's a friend of mine who I just respect her work in that area. And that's been killer too. And I just did it almost for fun, you know. I wasn't experiencing anything bad in that area, but I was like, there's room for intern, particularly my relationship with self, and an unpack of how I relate. And now that we're a couple months into it, I'm like, oh, this is also aligned with that vision of that guy. It's about how I love, you know. It's not so much about this person or that person outside of me. It's about, yeah, how I relate, how I love, how I navigate my communication, how I navigate my erotic connections, how I navigate partnership, etc. And it feels like from the first session, I was like, fuck, this is more key than I thought it was, because this wasn't an issue that was, you know, suffering
So
or
what were you?
you go,
Yeah,
you
what
go.
were you noticing there? What came up that made you think about that? Like, I know you've just been through like an interesting dance with your marriage. Is that one of the
Yeah,
themes, or is it other stuff around that?
it kind of wasn't, because, you know, the marriage. my partnership with Mia is in a really good place. We came back together in Australia and just felt, spent about 8 weeks in and out of each other's space, staying in each other's houses, and then being separate and coming back, and that sort of just recalibrated itself. And she's in Bali right now and heading probably towards Europe. She doesn't know she's out in the world just traveling, and that feels good. That feels like um, very just centered in love. But basically, in the unpacking of our 2022, I just looked over. We have always been open, so I looked at
Open
some
as
of
in
the
open relating, right?
yeah,
For
yeah.
those
So
that,
we've been
yeah.
open relating since day one, and have a particularly independent like we're completely free, pretty much, in the way we operate. Now that sometimes has looked like we live together and are a happy couple sharing everything in a house, and then sometimes it's like, okay, you're over there in the world. I love that for you, and it still feels really good. But we took a few, the couple bubble, the relating, the whole package took a few hits over the course of 2022, particularly with being locked in one place and, just various other stuff. And some of the ways that I navigated other relationships and other dynamics, could have been better. Like we've had a relatively awesome run of long-term open relating, especially compared to a lot of other people. But I got to see when I looked at it from a distance, where where avoidant patterns are playing out, where addictive patterns. This is what led me to actually the coaching, seeing addictive patterns around sexuality that were very subtle. It's not like I'm jerking off to porn 5 times a day, or I'm having interactions that aren't loving, or that don't feel good about. Like I feel very good about the kind of interactions that I've had in my life. However, when I step back from it, I'm like, there's still, in key moments, there still can be an outsourcing to others that creeps in, and so a lot of the first conversation in the relationship coaching, the classic stuff of going into like childhood patterns, that I would rescue my mum as a kid, like, and then I could sort of see how that can tend towards a sort of leaky, energetic blueprint of like needing connection, or being emotionally,
Rescuer.
yeah, rescue us, and that can plug in a lot of different ways. So anyway, basically, I realized it was time for an overhaul of my internal relating patterns, and I would say they were still like, a 5 or 6 out of 10, but they're not a 10 out of 10. They're not this guy who sits there emanating love, securely attached with himself, in connection with people he cares about, and feeling like this field of um, beautiful, grounded love. That's what I'm saying I want, right? So it's like, cool. Let's upgrade or examine anything that does not support that to be a reality.
Share a little bit about your dance with Esther. You've been in for a while and then out for a bit, and now it seems like you're stepping back in. Where are you with regards to your relationship with that sort of mystery school? I know you talk about your work being a mystery school. How do you feel about Esther at the moment?
I I'm in I'm in the mystery with this stuff, which is often the case. So I feel a strong resonance with the work of ISTA, and many elements of the culture of ISTA. I I've done the fucking train. I've done like I'm teaching, I'm co-facilitating um, in May in Greece with Janine Marie and Amber Ra, who I love dearly, both of them, and I love being in Janine's trainings particularly. That'll be my 10th level one, and ISTA, Hidden Temple, and other offshoots of those things have been very influential on me over the last sort of 6 or 7 years, particularly working with erotic energy, bringing eros into ritual, but also building a tribe of people all over the world that I really, really love. Like I probably wouldn't know you if I haven't been in this. There's a lot of that in my life, like that web has really connected me to a lot of amazing people. So I've always had that part never wavers, but how much I want to, like, whether I want to teach or not is kind of changes for me at different points. And I think partly that's to do with my entrepreneurial journey. Like I have always had my own thing. So I had the Spiral Institute for nearly 10 years, so we're running these fucking powerful trainings, and 50 or 60 people come, and it makes good money. It transforms a lot of lives. It was a very potent container. So that completed. Now I've launched the EE, and that is very much my primary priority. Like I feel that I love working with sexuality. I love working with shadow integration. They're very core parts of me and who I am. But my particular area of focus is about power, leadership, money, particularly in spiritual scenes, which I think are fucking hopeless with those things. It's just not, and not to shit on anyone, but then those are not areas of strength amongst most spiritual communities. They're areas of suppression, hiding, inadequacy, that they're just not developed, those areas. So that's my highest priority. But I love being part of the ISTA field. I love working with that group of people. It's like I don't know if I'll ever be done, and I also doubt that I'll ever be like teaching dozens of ISTA trainings, because it just doesn't. One, I get bored teaching the same stuff. Two, the financial return is just like not like, I could be making $100,000 rather, or whatever. So those, and three, which should be really number one, is my own. I go to ISTA to do my own work. And what I've loved about it is it's one of the few places where I feel I can do deep work and be contained. And two, I go to support the deepening of that work in the world, because I do think it's incredibly valuable. When I run ritual, wherever it is, I basically source people who've done ISTA level 1 and 2, because I know they can come and play in a higher level magical reality than people who haven't. Like they've had certain culture and mindsets and embodied skills installed, so I can work with them. So yeah, I love it. I feel like I'll always be plugged into that greater field, but my dance with how much I want to be involved with delivering or teaching is always an interesting one, because there's just other currents that run through me that are really strong that tend to win out, but then I'll see some amazing training and with someone who's like, fuck, I've got to be there, I'll be there, so yeah, we'll see how all that pans out.
So with your view of ISTA, like from the semi inside, where do you see it needing some improvement? What's the next phase look like for ISTA in your opinion, like from the information that you have?
Look, I I already spoke on this on a podcast about this, and it was a little bit controversial, but so I will speak in higher level terms. I think ISTA is going through kind of puberty at the moment, is how I look at it, and if we think of it as a living thing, or if we think of it as an organization, this is kind of organism versus organization type of debate in the ISTA world, but I think that it's obviously both. Those are the same thing, in my opinion. An organism is just a living organization, right? I think it's trying to find its way in a new era. Yeah. And I think that requires certain shifts and changes, but I also, this is not so much my opinion of what will happen, but I also hope it manages to keep its shamanic essence intact, so there's this dance between we need to upgrade and reorganize a few pieces, but also if you become overly safety and meticulous, if you become overly protection oriented, then you will lose the magic of what this thing is. So it has a dance to find its way through, I think, in terms of, the trauma informed world, quote unquote, and the transformation oriented world. They can be seen to be quite at odds in the world, particularly in social media, and particularly how people think and talk when they're invested more or in one of those ways of operating than the other. Highly transformational people tend to think more about just the power of change and can brush over sometimes sensitivities or the trauma narrative, but because they're more focused on, transpersonal themes and development of human beings as souls and whatnot. And then on the other side, the trauma-informed model, which is obviously gaining power in our world at the moment, is very important. And there's some solid science that is amongst that, but it also can produce people who are, a little obsessed with sanitizing everything and making everything perfectly safe, and can lean. It's really interesting because the transformational model can lean to being over obsessed with sovereignty and can overlook the victim, and then the trauma model can lean towards obsession with group dynamics, safety, doing everything the right way, sensitivity, and can become over obsessed with the victim. And I think ISTA is trying to figure its way through that at the moment, and I'm very curious about how that's going to work out. And I think, look, it was interesting for me I had a dose of this inside one of my own organizations inside the Spiral. Like we hit a lot of global values shifts and challenges in 2020 and 2021 when Black Lives Matter happened, when a bunch of things happened. They brought out other ripples that showed up in our container, and we had to work through a lot of different political issues and identity type issues that, as someone who'd been primarily coming from a personal development point of view, I was a very individualistic, transformation focused person who just couldn't understand initially why, especially in like 2016, 2017, why certain issues around diversity, inclusion, safety, sensitivity, etc. would keep coming up. And I'd be like, what are you guys talking about? Like, use the fucking tools, clear your shit, get on with it. We're empowered beings. And then only after multiple repeat things did I start to be able to track, okay, this is actually a thing. Even though I don't necessarily relate to these concerns, or I don't necessarily agree where a certain person is coming from, at some level we need to accommodate and integrate these needs and these values in this thing. And ultimately it was part and parcel of what led to me deciding to complete with that organism, because I didn't really want to run a healing modality that had to be particularly sensitive around all kinds of issues. When I would do something silly / hilarious, like make a podcast called Tantra Made Me Gay, and then I'd have all these complaints from someone who's working with like the Canadian LGBTQ community feels that Dane Tomas is not a safe person and the Spiral is not safe. And I was like, oh, like that was actually a highly nuanced and caring conversation that we had, but I just gave it a bit of a spicy title. And then suddenly I'm in these kind of friction wars around what I consider political correctness, but what someone else might consider just being educated about certain issues. So I've tasted, what I'm trying to say is I've tasted complex leadership dynamics, traversing, changing territory in spiritual organizations before. And I think ISTA is journeying that right now. And it's also interesting in that ISTA has had a largely decentralized organizational structure, so it can be it's not simple to go, cool, management has decided we will now do this. Like, it doesn't work like that. So that's also something that people outside of it maybe struggle with. But I also see people in ISTA doing a lot of work to put processes and pieces in place. So yeah, there's a lot there, but I think it's going through a growing, some challenges / growth period / who knows what direction it's going to mutate into.
Yeah, I think in many ways, the way that they had such a loose structure really allowed it to be able to flourish. They didn't have a specific hierarchy or a traditional model that allowed it to just really grow and flourish. And I think a lot of that had to do with its extreme growth. Like, it had the ability to really just be able to pick up and blossom wherever there was an opportunity, and it didn't require permission from anybody, and it didn't require approval. And so, yeah, I see that. And
Yeah,
then I resonate with exactly what you're saying. I've sort of been seeing it secondhand through Araminta's involvement. But yeah, there's definitely two polarities: the sort of spiritual, transformational polarity, and the trauma informed. Make sure that we know everything that's going to happen before it takes place, so that I can make an informed decision before I go into this container. And too much of one takes away from the other.
yeah. And I mean, do I even want to get into, from a spiral dynamics perspective? I don't know if anyone's familiar with spiral dynamics. It's a system that tracks emerging values in culture, and the sixth level of spiral dynamics, the green mean, which is really about equality, sensitivity, diversity, justice, is really getting louder in the whole world at the moment. This is across all kinds of different issues. And so that particular level of consciousness is all about the group, is all about belonging, is all about marginalized people, the most hurt people in a given category getting the loudest voice. It's all about deconstructing hierarchy. It's, and so that pendulum is swinging hard in the world right now. And there are levels above it that are the ones I'm more interested in, to be honest, like high level systems and flow state sort of based thinking. And then beyond that, working with energetic fields and working with kind of the planet as one thing. But those levels, we're not in those as a culture. We've been in a capitalist model for a couple 100 years, and now this kind of equality, sensitivity, social justice model is kind of, in some ways, wreaking havoc with many existing structures and ways of doing things. Like I've been on TikTok lately getting obsessed with the whole gender identity rabbit hole and just watching fucking just the endless battles between extremes of conservative, we should really need to maintain masculine and feminine and whatever, which I somewhat agree with, and then depending on how far they take it, don't agree with, versus like, gender's not even real, you guys, it's all made up. I'm like, okay, you guys, this is a little too far. And then there's like, lesbians getting out of the queer movement because they're saying it's been hijacked by mentally ill people who want to identify as like fucking foxes and lizards and whatever. And so basically what's happening is this is what Jordan Peterson is talking about when he goes on about the postmodernists and whatnot. There is a different level of consciousness gaining power in the world at the moment, and it is the level that seeks to empower the disempowered, and it is the level that is primarily oriented around people's sensitivities being recognized, and that, for better or worse, is gaining power planetarily, and every organization, corporation, group of people, tribe, community is going to have to deal with that, probably in different shapes and forms, but in some shape or form they will have to accommodate and learn to deal with that, and so whether it's all that pronouns have to be present at the beginning of the conversation, or whether it's, is this workshop trauma informed, or whether it's some other thing like inclusivity, diversity, etc., will be demanded, and that will come in intelligent forms, and that will also come in completely fucking toxic, like ego trip forms. And people who are leading different things, we're going to have to learn to dance with that stuff, and it's super complicated.
In terms of the spiral, like what's the way through from this particular level? Like how do we penetrate this particular sort of cancel culture sensitivities that you're talking about?
Yeah, it's a really intelligent question. And so this level is called green, as I've kind of named it. The level above green is yellow, and yellow is the first of the second tier memes. It's the first of the second tier value systems are different in that they can navigate all the other value systems. So before that, whatever value system you're in, you think that's the right one. If you're an achievement guy, which is like orange, you're like, I fucking got what I worked for. I deserve it. Fuck off. These are my results, you know? If you're green, you're like, oh my God, that's your privilege talking, you know, you shouldn't even be speaking your whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
And everyone should have a voice. So that's the healthy version of it. Everyone should have a voice. If you're yellow, you start to be able to recognize actually all of these different value systems are relevant at different times depending on context. So we might be non-hierarchical, but if you're like the fitness expert and there's 8 of us want to get fit, we're going to defer that Gareth is going to lead this because he knows more. He's got results. Let's just listen to him. He can design the program. Let's just follow him. But if it comes to like, I don't know, rewiring the house with electricity, we're going to get the electrician guy to do that. We're not going to get you to do it because you're good at fitness, right? So we have this intelligence of knowing when to have hierarchy, not have hierarchy. One thing that happens with this stuff, with this green meme stuff, is it gets stuck in fighting for consensus or pushing for consensus. So like everyone has to have a voice. We're all sitting in a circle. Everyone gets to speak, you know. Okay, great. But this is going to go forever and we're never going to get consensus. What happens in green meme cultures, I have quite a few, this is when people come to me, they've been say an artist, activist type person who's lived in green for quite a few years and they're starting to get sick of it, right? They're starting to realize it has limits and it actually gets super toxic. And then they start looking for other things. This happens. This has already started to happen with like, with things like the Me Too movement, right? Like it came in, it was a super important thing to happen. But after a year or two, we already could start to see the pattern of, oh, this thing is starting to get weaponized. Like just because someone says something is sexist or misogynist or whatever doesn't mean it necessarily is. And now we have to start being more nuanced. So the green meme itself will basically push people to eventually being able to think in a more nuanced way, largely because of its dysfunctions. So people will try to put, you know, okay, people have complained, so we've installed an ethics board and we've got a safety officer and we've put fucking cushions in all the corners of the tables and we've got an emotional support animal and we've got this, we've got that. It's like, yeah, they still hate you. They're still crying. And eventually this will cause like, that's not the answer. Like this isn't fucking working. Or some of this is working, but we need other things as well. So I think it's a pretty crappy answer because the world hasn't really dealt with this properly yet. None of us have really evolved out of it. But basically, oversaturation of a certain level will get very acquainted with its pitfalls and it pushes us to somewhere else. But like the previous level was the orange meme, which is basically capitalism and science, right? It's the opportunity focused meme. I mean, also we don't grow out of them completely. We build on top, right? So it's not like as we move into this era of sensitivity, we throw away our iPhones and nobody makes a profit in their business and nobody wins at sport or anything like that anymore. It just becomes, yes, we've built that. And now we have to make sure that everyone is included and everyone is safe and everyone's sensitivities are addressed, and everyone belongs. we build that, and then eventually it becomes, yeah, but what else is there? The yellow paradigm is essentially obsessed with information flow, flexibility of behavior, and learning. So what happened for me during my spiral, the Spiral Institute, as we went through a green meme social justice installation period, and I decided basically the best way for me to serve that was to get out of the way, was to not be the person in charge, because I'm not that. Even if I'm personally becoming more inclusive and this and that, I'm not that character in the organization. Like, I made the thing. There's always going to be a power imbalance. As I sort of started to step out of that role, it was like my yellow opened up, and my yellow was like, cool, you have infinite possibilities. What do you want to do? What drives you? You've got some money in the bank. You've got free time. You're in a good place in your life. What would you like? And it's like the yellow frequency is like, well, I want to learn. I want to understand more things. I want to travel the world. So there is a piece in there that is like, flexibility, flow, context. It's a meta thinking model, right? So my fucking dream would be that after we cook in this for a little longer, we start to pop into a more sophisticated model. So say we're inside an organization, when the yellow starts to emerge, it can go through all the levels and go, see this thing we do here at the tribal level? That's really good. We should keep it. See this thing we do here at the traditional level with our structures and our rules? That's good. We should keep it. We should change this bit. See this capitalist part? We need a little bit. Turn that up a bit, a little bit more. Okay, see this green meme thing? It's gotten out of control. We need to bring it. So the yellow is almost able to fine tune the other levels, like it's playing an instrument. It starts to recognize we need all these fucking things. The reason this thing came in so aggressively is because we were lacking in it for, hundreds of years. It's like, well, the feminist thing should have never happened. It's like, dude, that was literally always going to happen. Like, there's a structure that's been there for, hundreds of years that is imbalanced. Eventually it's going to get popped, but it's going to maybe become overactive for a while, where, like, if you're a cis white man, you should shut up. It's like, okay, are we going to stay at this level? Like, is that our end game, or is that a pendulum swing that eventually we need to bring back into harmony and order? So yellow is the ability to look at all the levels together. Complicated answer.
And then what's above the yellow? Is there? I don't know the spiral.
So turquoise is above yellow, and turquoise is very fascinating to me. So turquoise, incidentally, these levels alternate between self, group, self, group, self, group, self, group the whole way. So that's why it's a spiral, because the patterns repeat at new levels of complexity and sophistication, right? So yellow is once again individualistic, but it's individualism that includes inclusivity, and it includes success, and it includes tradition, and it includes... So if we think of yellow as a high level systems way of navigating the world, and I don't just mean like computer systems, but just an ability to look at our behavior in a systems way, turquoise is more holistic. So it starts looking at the planet as one entity. It starts to deal, rather than information flow in the yellow sense, it starts to deal with reality in the sense of dealing with fields of energy. So it can hold a lot more information. It has a sort of embodied connotation to it. They're the main things that I understand about turquoise, which I feel I have a little bit of in my life, but I'm definitely not quite turquoise centered, but I can work with it, particularly in ritual spaces. And, the way I do business has an element of turquoise of like, yeah, I've got a business plan, but I'm also working with the field of energy of a group, which I don't need to know what every person is doing right now. I'm just holding an energetic field that they can all be inside, So it's quite profound, they reconcile things. But it also has a global awareness. So they talk about turquoise first appeared on the planet in any real amount after we went to the moon, because we had this almost experience of human consciousness stepping out of the planet and seeing the planet as one thing. Be like, how can you be racist if you've been to the moon? It's like, we all live we're all from the same place. What are you talking about? Like,
Perspective, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So if we don't all get cancelled and we don't all die, we might make it into these levels in our lifetime. That'd be cool.
Amen. When we last had our conversation, you shared some really beautiful stuff around the journey that you had with your friends passing last year. Can
Mm,
you, yeah, for those that didn't quite get it at the beginning, Dan and I recorded an hour and 20 minutes of a podcast before it completely disconnected. And so this is the second take. And yeah, I just want to get a sense of what came from that for you. What were some of the challenges of seeing our mortality in such a close way? Like, because I don't have that reference point in my world yet. Like, I'm intellectually, I understand we're all going to go. Everybody I know at some point is going to die. And it's been sort of distant family, like a friend from
yeah.
school and grandparents. And so I still realize I haven't got that reference point that you were so good at describing in the last call.
Yeah. Probably my closest male friend, or one of my very closest male friends, just passed at the beginning of 2020. Still in circumstances that are not entirely clear, very weird circumstances. But and actually, where I'm living now on this river, where he was living, was just further up, right at the end of this river. So I'm back in that area, and yeah, it led to a lot of changes in my life. It started firstly with just shitty grief and pain. Like that was just, it was I'd say a tough few months. I reckon it was 2 or 3 months. And it was also the same exact time COVID hit here, and we did our first lockdown around. So I lost my primary coping mechanisms of, I go to the cafe where I journal my feelings, and then I go to the gym where I kind of transmute my feelings into something else. I had a good groove going around that time. And it was like, yeah, you can't go to those places. So it's like, okay, my friend just died. I can't go to the places that I go to every day. I don't have a home gym, and the supply chains are not working. So I'm ordering all this stuff online, ended up coming like 4 months later or whatever. So I fucking did a lot of moping around. Like I just hardcore. We got a projector. I watched a lot of movies. I drank a lot of boutique beer. I got an appetite for, you know, and just ate. I just went into this like, I can do whatever I want because my life sucks and I deserve to just fucking, you know, have my coping mechanisms. So I stayed up late and watched movies and drank beer and was pretty mopey. Um, and kind of life went on with this heavy fucking thing there. I remember doing sales calls, crying in the bath, the day after. I was like, well, there's no point canceling everything. Like, what's it going to fucking, what am I just going to sit here? I'm not going to. So I just sat there and cried, and I made a call, closed the deal. Okay, I'm going to hang out and cry some more. Next one. It was like, I didn't really know how to deal with it. Anyway, it really was a deep medicine in a way. And I don't mean this to trivialize the sucky part. Like on just a basic level, it really sucked, particularly at first. And then I started to try to work with it. And don't want to portray this as that I did this gracefully or whatever. Like when I could, sometimes in some moments, I would do a bit of movement. I would feel into it. I would try to really be with the pain. And it really brought a reality to my spiritual practices and beliefs. Was one of the things that happened over several months. Like, because for one, I was getting annoyed with how a lot of my spiritual community was dealing with COVID. There was a lot of unrealistic and immature stuff was revealed around. It's not even real, so we're not even going to do it. I'm like, what are you talking about? You didn't cancel that event. Like, it doesn't matter what you believe in. This thing is happening, and it's like, oh, we're just gonna like, it'll be fine. And so I got friends flying into some event, and they're all like, what's happening? I'm like, they think they're still running it, and they cancel it like the day before or whatever. So there was this whole thing going on, and it was strange for me because I could track there's something there's something off in the spiritual community, even though I love these people. And the death moving through me started to really open up this inquiry around, like, okay, it's like the universe going, okay, motherfucker, what do you really believe? You know? Because I'm like, where is this? This guy's dead. I fucking can't believe that he is dead. And I could see my mind starting to sort of throw up bits and pieces, scraps of different religions that I might have half believed. They're like, okay, well, maybe he's here. Maybe this has happened. I'm like, the deepest part of me was like, you have to admit you don't fucking know. You don't, this is beyond, you're so talented and clever and you can manifest your life and shape what you want. Here's something, the hugest thing, and I have no control over it. It was almost like, if you go out surfing or swimming and you just get smacked by a huge wave, it's like Mother Nature's it's like, yeah, just remember, you're really small and I'm really big and you're not in charge here. That's what it was, like an ego slap of this, though. It was like, yeah, you're a wizard, Harry. You can create whatever you want, but just remember there are certain laws of this dimension that are outside your control. And I really went through gradually a lot of my assumptions about life and was like, I need to drop more of the. I can't be walking through life thinking like I know all this stuff. Like that's the height of arrogance, and particularly in spiritual community. Well, in Buddhism this happens, or in shamanism it's just like, look, a lot of that is a bunch of borrowed shit that you've taken into your mind to help you deal with the fact that we're all going to fucking die, and it's like that really exposed, which is not me really, like I still value all these different traditions and teachings and so much amazing stuff, but I started thinking how much of human culture is designed just to avoid the inevitable realization of death, from heaven to junk food to the mindless scroll. A lot of it serves to hide from pain and make us not have to deal with the depth of that realization. And I just decided gradually I'm not going to do that. I think it's cheating. I think and you're going to have to deal with it anyway. And this was, so after the first wave of like, oh, my really dear brother who I thought I would be hanging out with for another 30 or 40 years is gone. That was really hard for my mind to like grasp. And it was particularly hard because it was like, no, this isn't the right script. This is the wrong, this is the wrong character in the story. Like that dude was meant to be a main character in my life for a lot longer. Like it doesn't compute. If someone I only a bit know would have died, that would be more okay because they're not a main character. I only care about them a little bit, versus like, fuck, not that person. I need that person for this story to go on, Once that moved through, I remember getting this really dark realization of like, yeah, everyone else is going too, right? Like, your wife, your other best mate, your parents, obviously, likely before that, parents. And it's just like, oh, fuck, this isn't, unless I die first, I'm going to have to deal with this a lot more times.
Again and again and again,
And that
yeah.
was like this second wave of like, oh, that's gross, but like you said, obviously I was aware of that my whole life on an intellectual level, people are going to die. But to experience it and then experience a second thought of like, yeah, like this could, and not only other people can die, this could happen to anyone at any time. And I just remember feeling sick of this, like, fuck. And for a while, like I'd be at breakfast and Mia's jumping in her car to go to an appointment. I'd be like, hey, be careful. And she'd just be like, look at me like, oh, and I'm like, fuck, that's not, I've never had that vibe. Like it was just in me of like, fuck, anyone could go, like this is really terrifying. And really actually started to hit me deeper in the heart of like, you better love people, or like the people that you do love, feel it, work with, be in it, like live it, it can't be an absent-minded, like, oh yeah, I fucking care about you. Oh, you're dead. Oops, didn't forget to tell you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that really went through. And I think the other big thing, I'll wrap with this thing, is like, it really gave me a higher degree of ruthlessness around purpose. It's like there's certain shit that I'm here to do. And, like I coach people who were scared to fucking post a video on the internet, and it's like, that's not, people looking at you is not the risk here, or to look back to, getting cancelled. So what? Some people are going to talk about you mean in a group. Is that what you mean? Is that what it is? They're not going to kill you. They're probably not going to put you in jail. So that they're the real cancellation is death, right? Let's expand. The real cancellation is death. Okay, that's the big one. All right. Are they going to cancel me? No, they're not going to cancel you. They're going to cancel you to death. Okay, cool. Am I going to go to jail? You're not going to go to jail. Am I going to even lose my social media accounts? Probably not. There's fucking all kinds of fucked up people still doing their thing online, and it's not an issue. Okay, so what does it mean? It means criticism. It means challenge. It means people trying to fuck with you. It's like, well, okay, is that it? Like, that's small, That's very small, and that moved through me. Also, the idea of like, another big risk is saying yes to shit and going down a whole path of working on things and doing things that isn't really the most highest truth of purpose. That's from a taking mortality. I'm not sitting here thinking like this every minute of every day, but taking mortality into the equation, time becomes precious. And I remember going through like, what are the things that if I was to die at the end of the year, I'd be sad I didn't do it. It's like, you didn't make any music. You said you wanted to do that. That really brought my creative timeline forward. It's like, I've got a EP coming out. It's literally getting mixed and mastered right now. It took ages, but the death thing definitely helped me do that, because it's like, I can imagine dying, and it's not going to be, I've never had the love of a good woman. I've had that. I've never made money. You've made money. You've never won a fight. You've won a fight. You've done these certain things, but did you create cool stuff you didn't. You fucking wasted it. It's like, I wanted to make music, So it basically, like a big sword came through my life, and it really taught me a lot about perspective and what I value. And I think I've been a little deeper since then. I think it brought a little bit more depth into my life. We're coming to 3 years now, and it's like, okay, things got more real, got more deep. And also I got less afraid of these small things, like criticism. That can't be a real barrier to doing what we want to do in life. It's really not a big deal. It presents as a big deal. It presents as a big deal because it triggers latent trauma and survival patterning. I don't want to be thrown out of the group. Why don't you want to be thrown out of the group? Because in the old school of the tribal structure, you're thrown out of the group, you fucking die. In this world, you could probably find another group. It's not even that bad. There's billions of fucking people, But the nervous system doesn't know that. The nervous system is like, exile equals death. And it's like, that was a Facebook group. It's not even a real tribe of people. It's just some bullshit that you might not even be into in 8 years from now. So I think perspective is really great. That's, this is very double-edged. I wish that everyone would get a taste of the impermanence that might serve them. I don't wish death on anyone's friends. It's not very nice. But I wish for people to acquire that taste of impermanence sooner rather than later, because I actually now feel like I would rather have gone through this at the start of my 40s than the first time be like 60 and be like, you got this old and you didn't fucking realize. Like, that's...
Yeah, the practice of meditating on death is such a strong one, and it's not something that we're taught to do. We completely push it out. We don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's something that's going to happen when we're 100, and everyone will die peacefully in their sleep. And
Yeah.
that's not actually true. And sitting with the impermanence of life makes every moment precious if you can bring awareness to that. And how's your dad?
Yeah, he's all right. my dad has had a journey with cancer. He got through a round of all the things, the chemo and the radiotherapy and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be the guy who's going to like juice cleanse and meditate to try to fix it. He's like a
Okay.
older, working class, stoic Northern English old dude.
Mm.
He has similarly been softened by death, by the touch and the proximity of potential death. He's a lot gentler and more overtly loving. It's not really his roots and how he grew up is not. I didn't grow up with a dad who's like, "I love you, son." That's not. I used to think it was gay. This is growing up. I used to think it was gay if dads were like affectionate with their sons. I was like, oh, that's fucking.
Wow.
It's so funny. I was just like, what? Your dad kissed you on the cheek? That's just fucking weird. And
Uh-huh.
I'm laughing at it now, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's been very sweet to see him soften, and even though it's hard as well, it's hard. Like he still has cancer. It's less. I don't know what the technical situation is, but he's able to function now. He couldn't eat when it was first happening. He's all right. He's
Mm-hmm.
lost a lot of weight. He's a lot smaller of a guy than he was. He's quite, he looks a bit more frail. He calls me all the time, which is very counter to the
Sweet.
last previous 40 something years. Yeah, he's okay. And and it was I can feel like the James, my friend, that death, which was very unexpected and felt very unfair, softened me up, because when this happened, obviously I was really sad and it was very heavy for me, but I could feel it's like a layer of resistance to death had already been taken. Like, it wasn't like, oh, that's fine. It hurt, but it was like, oh, I felt the wave of it, and I was like, I instantly know that I'll be able to cope with this. You know, um, I'll be, it's still going to hurt, but there's this sense of like, oh, this is that thing again, and it can pass through you. It can be a thing that passes through you, and it's like, okay, and I imagine being old. And maybe it's not the same, but I feel like I have worked with it, and I don't want to fucking tempt anything horrible. Like I can feel a part of me like, Dane, don't be making boastful spiritual hubris comments. I know that I will be working with this energy for the rest of my life, like, and there's, yeah, it's sensitive, even with my friend, like we talked about the benefits of it. I still miss him. Like, I still miss my friend.
Yeah.
And yeah, even when my dad goes, it's gonna hurt. But I think as a family, even, we're all just vibrating into that thing. And he's like a stoic probably for more than 10 years. He's been telling me how, well, one day I'll just get in a boat and I'll row out to sea. I'm not going to go to a home. I'll just take some whatever. And I'm like, what? You can't do. That's not a realistic plan. It's like, that's what I'm going to do. So I'm like, and like, it's like, okay, all right, that's the humor / I think he kind of means it, but
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, okay, you've made your point. That's clear.
Yeah, bro. Thanks for sharing that. It's there's tenderness around it.
Yeah, yeah,
Before we go, there's two things I'd like to ask you. One of them would be to share what you're doing inside the Esoteric Entrepreneur Academy, but through the lens of perhaps some sort of interview. Like, I feel like it might be the type of thing that I perhaps could / should consider. And yeah, it might be an opportunity for me to have the conversation that I would have with you anyway, while at the same time give you the opportunity to share what this program's about for those that might be a good fit for it.
Love it. Very meta. Um, let me give you the short spiel, and then I'll ask you a couple. You mean me ask you some questions, or did you mean you ask me some questions?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. No, you ask. I mean, if I get stuck, I'll ask you. But I'd like to hear more or less about what it's about and give you the
Cool.
opportunity to see whether I'd be a fit.
So the premise behind that, even the language esoteric entrepreneur, is really about the meeting of spirituality and business. You know, they're my two longest term passions, as I've mentioned, and I've spent a lot of time helping quote unquote spiritual people, which is broad. It can mean embodied people, can mean people with a higher purpose, it can mean people working in a specific spiritual niche. It doesn't really matter. It's just collectively anyone who is in some way working with spirit or a more inspired form of leadership who wants to be successful. You know, this is my filter of like people that actually have some ambition. They want to lead a movement. They want to have an impact. They want to have a financial benefit from what they're doing. And they want to treat that as part of the spiritual path. So my experience has been when we bring these two things together, the esoteric and the entrepreneurial, they start to serve each other, you know, the inner work. And we talk a lot about magic, but let's just for now call it inner work starts to fuel the entrepreneurial journey. The more stuff we deal with, the more we integrate, the more we align, the easier it becomes to get external world results. On the other hand, you know, the mastering of the numerous skills that are needed for even a good basic small business of marketing, selling, organizing, planning, action taking, leadership, communication, you know, all those pieces also can be used to ripen the person. You know, I'm not just learning leadership to get my team to do what I want them to do. I'm learning leadership to become a better human being and to become more deeply aligned with who I really am. So there's this trade where by pulling these two things close together, we get to grow in both of them. So really, I built it for anyone who has a spiritual mission that they want to enact through a business-like or entrepreneurial endeavor. You know, so if you're building a charity, it's not for you. But if you're building a movement that has a business element to it, it's for you. And so, just the way we do it, I have built a faculty of teachers wrapped around myself and the curriculum, and it's based on three pillars. The pillars are money, mastery, and magic. Money is how to make it, how to manage it, how to keep it, how to multiply it. Mastery is about navigating the higher level skills and the more holistic skills it takes to be a successful human as well, you know, and a leader. And magic is both personal development type and inner work, but also ritual based work. So we do, in addition to having lessons on marketing and planning and doing and challenges that get things happening, we also do sex magic every Sunday, which is not the typical thing to do in a business mastermind, obviously, but we do a
Yeah.
sex magic ritual on Sundays called church. And so the system of it is we get clear on our intentions, we take focused action, but we also charge that up with ritual, energetics, emotion, the unconscious mind as well. And it tends to make things happen a lot more smoothly. So that's basically what it is and how it works. Do you have any questions about that, Gareth?
No, I've been watching it unfold. I haven't yet checked out one of the Esoteric Entrepreneur podcasts. And the reason I framed the question this way was specifically because, yeah, I feel like I am a little stuck in my current creation with regards to the flow of specifically financial results into my world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, perhaps this is your interview process to ask me some of the questions, whether you feel like it could be a fit, because I have been thinking about it since you started it, We touched on it in the conversation that didn't make it through because of the laptop crash. But yeah, I wanted to get a little bit more information about it and see how it, how it could resonate and support the next phase of what I'm creating.
Yeah. I mean, if I start asking you questions, they're going to be like personal and involve finances and stuff like that. Do you want that on your podcast? It's a bit.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Um,
Yeah.
where are you at in your business right now? What's working? Where are you at revenue wise? How would you assess the current reality?
I would say stuck. I would say I have gone ahead and built the team and the content and the offer without it being proven, and built I think I've got the structures in place having built a business before. At the moment, I have a business that has higher costs every month than I have revenue coming in. So
Yeah.
the actual numbers are, I have offers that I've put out into the world that haven't been received. And yeah, I'm at a place where my revenue is pretty low. It's like, a couple of grand a month, where I've
Yeah.
got overheads of 3 to 5 grand a month. And so
Okay.
that's sort of where I'm at the moment. And yeah, trying to find a way to penetrate that and just realize where the block is. I mean, I'm taking responsibility that has something to do with me, most of it, everything to do with me. And yeah, wanting to see how this could perhaps be penetrated through going into a container with you.
Hmm.
So
Where
yeah, where I
would you
am
like it
is
to be?
no.
If we magic wandered it in it and it's next year and you're like, oh, we crushed it. It was a good year. I'm really proud of where we got to. How would that look?
120 grand would be a great result, especially
Yeah.
coming from where I am at the moment. Yeah, I have bigger dreams than that, and I see the market that I'm in, and I know my own ability to be able to do it would be more than that. But I think in that bar setting, I mean, even 100 grand would be decent.
Yeah. So 10K months as a benchmark would be where we're trying to get things to get things moving.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Because I realize as well that also gets my nervous system to relax, knowing that I've got like 3 to 5 grand a month of overhead. I've now got 5 grand of profit, so that changes everything. So like a 10 grand month would be a very solid start for me.
Yeah. Um, who is your current target audience?
Men, 35 to 45. The version of me that was stuck in the world that I was in before I walked this path, and they probably hear it all the time, like the ability to be a healer inherently has the wounded healer as part of that journey, like the part of me that was looping in addiction, unaware of how I was creating my reality, sort of stuck in the matrix. So that version of me is my ideal client, specifically men.
Cool. And what are the main offerings that you have to serve these guys?
We have a foundational program called Core Scaffolding, which is a baseline understanding of getting clear and creating a solid environment, recognizing that we are a product of our environment. So it has to do with getting clear on the plan and direction that you want for your life, recognizing that your life is made up of various different areas, recognizing that some of those, as you said, will be more aligned and you'll be crushing it in some areas where you might be short in others, and having a way to be able to navigate that by creating the right environment through practices like understanding how thoughts become things, like basic magic, understanding how you set up specific things like your day, like your engagements that you have with partners, understanding the flow of energy through practices like self pleasure, a basic one on one to get clear on where it is that you're going and the support to be able to get there.
Cool.
It has three real elements, and those are sort of internal, external. The environment is the external. The internal is really a deep dive into, not a deep dive, but basically an initial dive into understanding the inner family tool, the inner kingdom is what we call it. So recognizing what those are and where we self-sabotage with that. And then the third piece is the container in which that gets supported. So the offer includes a 6-week training program where people are actually supported by other men to hold space in a circle to say, this is where I am, this is where I'm stuck. And I've built it that way because that's really how it supported me. Like being in circles, you and I were in a men's retreat together. A lot of that healing and the journey of the work is as much hearing what other people are stuck with as it is, me trying to do my own thing to solve it. So that's sort of the basis of the core scaffolding program. It's a $1,200 offer and it's a 6-week program, and we're starting it in March. We do it every single year. Last year we did it with 8 people. Our goal is to have 20 this year. So that's sort of the medium term goal with where we are at the moment.
Cool. Yeah. So there's a few pieces I'm just tracking kind of mentally / energetically. And I guess where I'd be looking at this is all in the external. Like obviously there's a whole bunch of internal work that is also valuable, but I would be curious about the message to market fit. I would not be just intuitively worried. I feel like the quality of the delivery is probably very high. I would be more curious about how accurate is the way you language to the people's needs of who would want this. That's what I'm curious about. So that's where I'd be looking at. So we start to kind of, some of the things we work with, we do a lot of, we just rolled out a bunch of year planning stuff, how do we design the business plan inside our own body? How do we structure the year so that we have the right packages in the right order at the right prices? Then the next piece we're about to move into is how do we unpack the message so that it resonates with the people that we actually want? And I think this is just a gut feeling, is like that's where I would probably start with you, and the sorts of pieces I would get you to work through would be around unpacking who your avatar is and then talking to them and asking them we give you a bunch of questions to ask them to unpack. Because it's like this, the dance we're doing is we want to bring through something that is true to us. So this is the thing, I did this fucking potatoes thing with my hands. There's me and there's I, and this is what I want to bring to the world. This is what feels alive for me. These are my gifts. These are my learnings of the last sort of 5 or 10 years, whatever. And then there's person.
I feel that part's clear for me.
That part feels strong, right? And then there's person. They're moving through the world. They have their own value system. They have their own languaging around their fears, frustrations, hopes, desires. And for them to catch a whiff of your thing, it has to come to them in the right language, the right frequency, on the right channel and platform, with the right amount of regularity for that to start to build trust, education, connection, to be like, this guy's, and the messaging needs to be able to talk to that person's journey in a way that they relate to it. Which we are not, as humans, we're not great at this naturally, because we have to construct the other and speak as though we're the other. And what I instinctively want to do is tell you, my thing is good. You should do it because X, Y, Z. And it's like, well, I don't know if that's what you want. I don't know what questions are sitting in your head right now, and so what I need to do is unpack those questions and answer those questions. And so that's, there's many things, but really, if we want 120K a year, basically we want some offerings, tick, you have some offerings, and then we want to sell the offerings. And that's a mixture of marketing and sales. Marketing is messaging, and then selling is converting people who respond to that message. If you were to rank those two, which would you say is weaker or stronger? So we basically put it in bare terms: lead generation, lead conversion. So ability to get people interested, ability to convert interested people into sales. How would you rank each of those out of 10?
Because I haven't closed that many, I would say lead generation is low, very low, like 1 or 2. I need more leads. I think when I have more leads, my ability to close would be better because I know that I can connect with somebody. So I would say it needs to go in that order. But because I don't have enough leads, I actually don't know how good I am at closing yet. The people that have trained with me before have had a long-standing relationship with me, and I've met them in person. So I think the lead generation and the messaging that leads to generating a lead needs some polishing for sure.
Yeah.
And and then I feel like I'd be able to close. If I could have 10 sales calls a day, I'd be in a very different place to where I'm at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. So I think that's probably where to start regardless. Yeah.
So
And
for
I think,
clarity, there's going to be that type of training. How does that unfold into
yeah.
my world as I join your program? Like, is it?
So the way it's built, we have an online portal that has all the good trainings I've done in the last year and a half. So I started from there. So we have Magic of Marketing and Shamanic Sales Mastery, both available in the portal, but also we're running new stuff all the time as well. And I do something called Business Satsang, which is basically you can come on and ask questions live. You can throw questions in the group. We answer questions directly. So there's structured trainings on how to message, create content, be prolific, zone in on your target audience's needs and language. That's in Magic of Marketing. Shamanic Sales Mastery is more about how to structure conversations to convert and to close deals and to that kind of stuff. So between those two, that's your attraction and conversion. But there's going to be some fun like content creation challenges where
Cool.
I have Jade, my tech witch, runs who is the leader of Tech Witch School. She comes in once a month for a Tech Witch call. We just did an Instagram one. We'll do a TikTok one next month. So we'll be teaching technical skills. We'll be answering specifics. We'll be doing higher level planning, structuring. I might get someone to do how to write copy with Chat GTP soon or whatever like that. But basically, a lot of the business end of stuff is how to structure message, and then we move into the more inner stuff around how to connect with that and kind of put energy into that as well. So that's a bit more the esoterics of it. But I think the starting point is getting content going out on all available channels that talks to the right people in the right way. So you're getting these little, hey, I'm just I really like that thing you wrote. I have that problem. That's my inbox is a never not full of those. It's like, okay,
Right.
seems like
That's
why you're
working.
coming to me. Yeah, that's because of what I talk about brushes across the issues that I know my client base have, which whether it's the confidence of putting things out there or whether it's issues around, financial mindset, or whether it's just knowing how to do it, or whether it's not enough time in the day, or whether it's building a team, or whether it's, I know that's the stack of issues that every creative spiritual entrepreneur that I have dealt with over the last 5 to 10 years has to deal with those. And it is probably at some point of their journey grappling with at least one of those right now. When I do a post about overwhelm, it'll be just have fucking 50 shares on it, and say, okay, so you guys are doing, okay, here's how you bust overwhelm. Okay, this is about your hiding. The way you're showing up is you're half showing up, but you're half kind of not showing up. Why don't we get you?
Feel like that's me.
Yeah, So we'll throw in things like, here's a 20 prompts to help you share your actual story in a way that is relatable. Like that's
right.
20 videos you've just got there. Like that's the kind of stuff we're playing with a lot.
I love it, bro. I think it's
To be
great.
continued.
I'll send you some details after this because I think I'm looking for someone to guide me in this path, and I feel like I resonate a lot with what you're doing, and I can feel you in your power with it, and you've got the results to prove it. And I think it's the next piece for me to get clear on what I'm being called to do and actually find a way to be received. I think that's where I'm feeling a bit of frustration at the moment. Like I've put a lot of work in inverted commas in and put a lot of stuff out there, but not being received can be kind of painful. It's like, fuck, man,
Yeah.
And I'm either going to penetrate it and make it work, or put it down as an experiment that I did for a couple of years.
Cool. Could be on that bit where you're two shovels away from gold. It could be that stage.
I've said that to my team so many times. We've got this snowball, and we're like, shit, we're probably quite close to the top, and we've actually got to this place where we have a real sort of, we've called it a failure condition. I don't love the word, but like I've been funding this project with crypto and the hope that, the feminine will somehow just appear and people will love it and take it. And I've spent money on some coaches, but I haven't quite penetrated it. And I've got to a stage where we're like, if we at the end of this month don't make 5 grand, like we're going to have to fucking close this down or make a different decision. And so, yeah, there's this genuine sense of like, we need to do something here. And yeah, I feel like this conversation is timely because I feel like there's something that I need to just shift, and I feel like it could come from being inside a container like what you're holding. So
Yeah, we got some cool magical things happening that are half because people are doing the right actions and half because something just becomes more aligned as well.
mhm. So, brother, I really appreciate you taking the time to hang. It's good to get to the end of the conversation and not have it cut out halfway through.
We
And
made it.
we made it. Bro, I love you. Where can people get hold of you? What's the best place for people to connect with your work and your magic?
Easiest places are Instagram, that's at Dane.Tomas. Thomas is Tomas. There's no H in it. And also the EE podcast on Spotify, which is more like a lot of my content going out is me like telling you what to do this, think about that, look at that. Podcast is sort of a reversal of that, where I'm just more sharing my internal thought process along the journey of my esoteric entrepreneurial path. So it's, you know, it's a window into how I deal with things and what I'm thinking about and what's working and what I'm trying and that sort of stuff. So those are two really great places to start. We share everything on Insta, all our podcast episodes, things like this. We share little highlights of them. And the EE podcast on Spotify or iTunes is, people seem to be really enjoying that short episode. I do 15-minute episodes, so they're nice and short. You can snack on them, and you'll definitely learn some stuff about business, but also about the inner journey as well.
Thank you, brother. I can't wait till we can connect in person again, and appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Gareth. Appreciate it.
Much love, bro. Ciao.